Okay, we are back talking thoroughbred racing once again, but it's not with John Hardoon. Instead, it's with Chad Summers, who was our guest about a week and a half ago. And we hinted that we would have Chad on. Matter of fact, on Friday's show with John for a weekly show starting every Monday. And that's exactly what we are doing, kicking off our Monday shows talking thoroughbred racing with Chad Summers. Chad, how's everything going?
No, everything's good. It's another rainy, dreary day in New York. We'll be thankful when springtime comes. Unfortunately, I think Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, and we have 6 more weeks of winter. And from horse racing standpoint, that's not exactly ideal. And it hasn't just been in New York. I mean, we've had cancellations throughout the country all winter long in Kentucky at Turfway Park, at Oaklawn. We've been off the turf a bunch in Florida. It's winter racing. You just got to embrace it.
Okay, now I know yesterday was there was a tough. I don't know how your overall day went, but I know that it was a tough moment for you and for John. Uh, Eighth race at Aqueduct, John's horse, John's filly, and we talked about this horse when she won. A great race, by the way. Let's talk about that race. Not this one on Sunday, but the previous one. She showed a lot of heart coming back to win that race, and that was a nice win heading into this one on Sunday.
Yeah, no, she's a fighter. She's a fighter. She's a horse that we didn't spend a lot of money for at the sale. We bought her for 20,000 as a yearling, a 1-year-old filly, and she was a horse that just kind of took a little time. We skipped Saratoga with her and kind of kept her down in Florida on the farm and brought her in September. So she's kind of a little bit behind some of the other horses on the Derby Trail, Oaks Trail per se, but she came together very, very well, and she's a filly that we're really high on. And when she was able to break her maiden, she was really, really gritty.
Yes.
It was a kind of a track. She was against the track, and she really closed and was able to get up on the wire and showed some good heart. And the next logical step was to stretch her out a little bit, go a little bit further, and try a little bit tougher. And yesterday was a $100,000 stake race, and we thought we had it, and then we weren't sure. Then we thought we had it, and then we weren't sure. Then we were pretty sure we had it, and we were waiting for the photo to find out that we got beat a dirty nose at the last possible jump.
Yeah, I'm showing the highlight here now, and at this point, it looks like it's going to be hard for her to catch the two.
Yeah,
not even paying attention to what's going on the outside. And then once she passes the two, you figure, all right, it's over. And then this shotgun hottie came off on the outside and beat Champagne Poetry by a whisker.
I'm gonna blame you for this one, because when I had my first appearance with you, you showed the highlight of me. My horse, Mind Your Biscuits, coming from out of the clouds, and you don't think he's gonna get there. So this was almost like karma,
retribution.
Biting in the butt. I think, yeah, at the end. So it's, look, I was super proud of her. She's very, very lightly raced. It was only her third career start. The future is certainly ahead of her, which is, what you can ask for on a young, 3-year-old filly that she is. So, it's disappointing to lose. And I'm not going to lie to you. I cried myself to sleep last night, but, we'll live to fight another day. And the next logical step in the progression is a $250,000 race on March the 5th called the Busher. So, I'll lose a photo for 100 if we can win a photo for 250.
Hey, absolutely. When is that race?
March the 5th.
Okay.
It'll be the same day as the Gotham as well.
And
that is a 50-point race for the Kentucky Oaks. So if she were to win that, she would almost assuredly assure herself a spot in the starting gate for the Kentucky Oaks.
That'd be awesome. That would be absolutely awesome. What would have been the difference had the horse won?
In purse, about 30,000.
Okay.
So not tremendous, but still a big deal. You're talking about more than she costs. So, it's look, the wins are big. Sometimes it's about the money, but sometimes it's just about the wins and the sure. feeling in the barn. And when you run second, it's a little bit like, especially like that. It's almost like kissing your sister. It's frustrating, but the fact that she showed up and the jock was happy with her, that's the most important thing. Come back safe and sound and live to fight another day. I mean, this was not our end goal. One thing that we try and do here, and it's funny with Triple Crown season coming up and things like that. Everybody on their mind is the Kentucky Derby, right? And for us, with this filly would be the Kentucky Oaks, and that's the first Friday and Saturday in May, which is late this year. It's the 6th and 7th. It's super late, but that's where you have to have them peak. That's where you have to, have them 100%. So right now, it's not a preseason game anymore. You're certainly in the meat and potatoes of the schedule, but it's all about just kind of progressing and moving forward, and that's what she was able to do yesterday.
Would there have been a different strategy had she won on Sunday, or is the schedule?
No. Kind of stays the same. I mean, look, and with weather right now and everything else, all options kind of stay on the table. The Busher is the logical step, but you can wait. There's a race in Kentucky, it's called the Bourbonette, which is another one. You win, you make it. But that's not till April 2nd. So it's really just kind of about timing. And again, I can't stress enough the weather plays such a big deal in where we are. We've had so many cancellations that, one of the things that happened with that filly was she was entered to run and it was cold out and snowy out, and they canceled her race. And so we were kind of pushed back a week. So this was, not as much rest. It was almost like coming back and playing a Thursday night football game.
Yeah,
is kind of what that was instead of the Sunday. So, maybe you're not 100% going into it. You'd like to have just a little bit more time to recover from that last victory. But, you play the hand you're dealt,
yes.
and now we'll have a month to the next one, which will give us plenty of time, hopefully, to get her ready.
Speaking of the Derby, so a lot going on because Mr. Bob Baffert had a hearing today, and we have no idea what took place, and we really have no idea what the outcome is going to be. Maybe for another few days, few weeks. I mean, make up your mind already.
Yeah, this is something that's it's certainly been frustrating within the industry, and also been frustrating on the outside of the industry. When you're a casual fan of horse racing, the races about, right? The Triple Crown, and really only the end of the Triple Crown if the horse wins the first and the second. Otherwise, nobody really pays attention.
True.
But the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup kind of towards the end of the year. Those are the races that show up on the bottom line. Those are on the bottom of ESPN. That's the only time we have coverage. And unfortunately, with this incident with Bob Baffert, that's been the bottom line more times than not. First, it was the win. I rewatched a video actually the other day I hadn't seen it before, but prior to the Derby this year, Mike Tirico on NBC actually did a video with Bob Baffert and Bill Belichick talking about how they're the, both 6-time winners, right? Bill Belichick 6 Super Bowl rings, Bob Baffert 6 Kentucky Derby wins, and kind of the similarities in what it takes to be a champion. And, Bob Baffert for years has been lauded as he's the guy. He's the Vince Lombardi or the Bill Belichick or, the guys like that, the Bill Russell,
yep.
That when the chips are on the line, he's going to find the horse and he's going to get there and he's going to beat you. And, he's got the target square on his back and everybody's been trying to knock him off his perch and they haven't been able to do it. And last year was kind of funny because he didn't have his strong hand. Normally he'd have 4 or 5 Derby contenders, and he had a horse named Life is Good, who ends up now is the best horse in the world now in the barn of Todd Pletcher. But he had gotten hurt about 6 weeks before the Derby. He was on everybody's big board as the number 1 pick in the Derby. He had a couple others that didn't make it. And so he was left with this little cheap horse, a $30,000 horse. And that was his only shot in the Derby. And he was kind of more low key than normal for himself. I remember I interviewed him the Tuesday before the race, and he goes, I'd be surprised if I win this one. He's a cool little horse, but we're up against it here. We're facing some monsters and, trying to play the underdog role.
Yeah. And
so when he won, it was almost like a total, wow, Bob Baffert can win with anything. You give him, it's almost like the movie Rudy, and say, all right, Rudy's now going to be the Super Bowl MVP. And that's kind of what that felt like, all right, hats off to Bob Baffert. He was able to pull it off. And so when it came out that he tested positive, and the rumblings came out quickly, right? And so he kind of had to try and get in front of it because it was before the Preakness, which was the second leg of our Triple Crown. And he had tested positive for a performance enhancer. Some say that it's therapeutic, which it is. There's certain withdrawal times that we have to combine by just like every sport. And his horse had tested positive, and we're like, all right, that's the end of it. And little do we know, he went on a tour. Blame cancel culture and some other stuff, and then next thing you know, New York's trying to kick him out. Kentucky, while not disqualifying him yet, that's what this meeting is about today, came out and basically banned him from entering their grounds for the next 2 years. So he's not allowed at Churchill Downs with any of his horses for the next 2 years, which severely impacts the Kentucky Derby because they're refusing right now to give him any points, right? To qualify for the Derby, they have turned it into a point system, right? So right now the points are 10 for a win, 6 for second, 4 for third, 1 point for fourth. And as you go on and on, the next round will be 50. And then finally, the big rounds will be 100. Right now, his horses can't qualify. And while he continues to win almost seemingly every one of these ones that he enters, including yesterday, he won by 15 lengths on another Derby prep with a horse named Messier. Unless those owners were to move the horse to a different trainer, they right now, as is written by Churchill, will not be able to run in the Kentucky Derby.
And was this really what this meeting was about? Was to once and for all try to find out whether or not it is possible, or what we...
So basically what has to happen is, when you test positive, no different than in any other sport or anything like that, you're allowed to ask for a split sample. The split sample was asked for and also came back positive. Bob Baffert then kind of appealed that and took it to another lab for another kind of sample. He thinks that the positive came from a cream that was being put on the horse for a skin disease. So they're trying to prove that it wasn't actually something else for different therapeutic purposes. And now you're finally at the point where you're just arguing about the law, saying, okay, is it this or is it that? And as we've learned in many cases, it's this, it's not that, right? It's not, you go back to Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky
Yeah.
and things of that nature. At the end of the day, the rule is the rule. The rule was violated. And, I would think that Churchill's going to hold their ground. Now he can appeal it at that point and move on to the Kentucky Supreme Court and then eventually to the actual Supreme Court if he wants. And I think he will. But if that happens, I don't know that Churchill's still going to change their mind on allowing him entry into the Derby. And, these owners are going to be left with an interesting decision because obviously there's no doubt he is a Hall of Fame trainer. He's one of the greatest of all time. And, is it Bob Baffert that makes the horse, or is it the horse that makes Bob Baffert? And that's going to be the question on all these big owners' minds that have given them, their prized possessions. And they all think right now they can win the Kentucky Derby. And, from what we've seen over the last 2 months in some of the races that Bob Baffert's horses have run, any number one of them could be number one as a favorite for the Kentucky Derby. He won the prep for the Kentucky Derby, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with a horse named Corniche. And then he just has continued his arsenal around the country, winning races at Oaklawn and California and New York and all sorts of places. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But as of right now, Bob Baffert is not allowed a horse in the Kentucky Derby. And there's going to be a lot of moving parts in the next 6 weeks, especially with what I would think that this meeting, while it's behind closed doors with the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, they'll start being some rumblings sooner rather than later, and we'll get a pretty good idea of where it lays within the next week or so.
So there, like you said, there's a chance that is it going to be this year and next year, or is it going to be 2023 and 2024 that he's?
It's all a matter of the appeal process.
Okay,
he's trying to think that it won't be anything, right?
Yeah.
Like he's saying, it was a mistake. It was a cream. It wasn't something else. And he feels as though there shouldn't be any punishment. He's already had enough punishment already, let alone, this is kind of in his mind and his attorney's mind, egregious. Sure. It's never been done before. They've never suspended somebody for 2 years without, a special cause. The positive that he has in a normal setting would be a 15-day suspension. So you're talking about a 15-day suspension compared to a 2-year
Well,
suspension.
then why was it so? Why did they enforce it so hardly then? I mean, so harshly then.
So what they're calling is integrity, right? They're saying that the Kentucky Derby is the number one most integrity driven event. It would almost be like testing positive in the Olympics as opposed to testing positive, in the trials in Eugene, Oregon. And the fact that it was the Derby, and the fact that he had another incident in the Kentucky Oaks, which was the Philly version of the Derby the year before. They just kind of put their foot down and they said enough was enough. And, it was kind of surprising from CDI and Churchill. That's not something that we've seen a lot from them. And we'll see how everything kind of goes. But it's certainly something that we have to pay close attention to, especially, people are out there. And this is so interesting, right? So they have the Derby future bet. And they have it like locally. They have like 4 Derby future bets over the course of the year run through Churchill, and no Baffert horses are on there. However, if you go to Las Vegas, right, or you go to William Hill and some of these other places, and now sports gambling has become legal in so many different places where you can bet on these future things. People are hammering these Baffert horses like they're going to win the Derby, and some of them might not even know that right now they can't even qualify.
Yeah, that's why futures. Matter of fact, I spoke to John about that last year, and he was totally against futures. Didn't think that was the way to go at all. So, and here's an example. This is a good example of why. So
no, listen, it's they're fun and they're rewarding at a price. I just took the University of Kentucky to win the NCAA championship.
Oh, I mean, futures for other sports is different. I love futures for, like you said, basketball and football.
Sure.
But futures for horse racing, I guess that could be a little bit more difficult because of stuff like this can happen. And a horse could, any number of horses on the trail can have an issue and they don't even show up.
No, it's very, very, very tough. I mean, it's tough to make a race even when you're in. It's tough to win a race even when you're in, right? Let alone whatever.
6 months. So 6 months before the race.
Unless you had some kind of divine intervention to know who's going to win the race, it is very, very tough. I mean, there's bragging rights for sure. And I remember one of my favorite future stories was Doug O'Neill, 2-time winner of the Kentucky Derby. Him and his friends had taken a flyer, and they had a horse named I'll Have Another, and a big kind of long shot, local horse. And they bet him in the future bet, and he was some kind of crazy price, and he ended up winning the Derby. Now, listen, he won the Derby. He's a Derby winning trainer, and here they are, driving to Vegas to collect their future bet, which was just kind of a cool.
Hey,
story,
why not, man? If you own the horse, I'd do it too.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so the 3 Derby winners, Kentucky Derby prep winners this weekend were White Barrio in the Holy Bull. You mentioned Messier in the Robert B. Lewis, and the early voting in the Withers. So taking a look at the standings right now, let's see. And look, like you said, the points are still very, very. They don't hand out a lot of points at this point in time. No pun intended.
Yeah, and that's why it's almost not as big a deal if you're not and that's kind of the thing with the Baffert horses right now. If they were to win one of these later races, and I always look, the points are the points, whatever, it's fine. I always thought it should be more like a March Madness thing, and you have like your little bracketed regions, and you win. If you win in Santa Anita, that's the Pac-10 or whatever. All right, you're in the Derby, rather than saying, oh, you got 100 points. I feel like it'd be just from a wording standpoint.
Isn't that what they do for the Breeders' Cup? You win and you're in.
I mean, they do, yeah. But nobody really pays attention to the Breeders' Cup like they do to the Derby. Now, I'll tell you what. It's a big deal. If you win a Breeders' Cup when you're in race and they pay the entry fee, it's a big deal. I had that horse Mind Your Biscuits we talked about last time, and we won a Breeders' Cup when you're in race, didn't have the entry fee. It was great. The next year, we ran second in 3 Breeders' Cup when you're in races and didn't qualify, and then spent $150,000 to enter into the race. And the horse didn't run any good. It was the worst race of his life, and we made nothing.
Yeah.
And so we lost $150,000 plus the 2 months we'd spent in Kentucky preparing and everything else. The thing about horse racing is interesting. In boxing, when they set up these dream matchups, one guy gets 23 million, the other guy gets 7 million. It's okay, you all get paid. In horse racing, if you don't win, and especially if you're not 1, 2, 3, you're going home empty-handed, and the horses still got to eat. The staff still has to get paid, and your bills don't change.
Sure.
But we don't have something where there's a handout of, okay, no, just an appearance fee. Oh, you're in the Kentucky Derby. I'll never forget the first year I had a horse. I was working with somebody, and we're in the Kentucky Derby, and we needed to get some ice. You put horse in the ice beforehand, and the ice was all gone because everybody on the backstretch was having a barbecue watching the race, and they needed it for their beers. So there's no ice. So I called the Churchill, and I said, listen, we're horse in the Derby. We need to get some ice. And they said, yeah, good luck to you. There's a Kroger, a mile and a half away. Yeah, well, the roads are all shut down. It's the Kentucky Derby. What are we supposed to do? And that was kind of the attitude.
So everyone's for themselves.
Couldn't even get some ice. So it's not easy. It's so expensive, and that's why people attack some of these international races, like in Saudi Arabia coming up next month, and in Dubai coming up in March. They try and take care of you a little bit. They'll pay for your flight. They'll pay for your groom and your exercise rider's flight. They'll pay for your hotel room. And in Saudi Arabia, it's a $20 million race, and there's no fee. There's no entry fee. So it's something that it's a big deal, especially when you're a little guy. They say that horse racing is the sport of kings, but sometimes everybody tries to participate.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. Okay, so by the way, just we'll follow the Derby schedule, the prep race schedule every week. So next week it's the Sam F. the top Derby prep races, the Sam F. Davis and the El Camino Real Derby next week. It doesn't really it gets a little better once we get to March with the Fountain of Youth and the Gotham. And then after that, you got the 26th of March, you got the UAE Derby. And then, of course, in April, you've got those 2 big weeks, the first couple of weeks of April. So still have a lot of time to go before we get into any of those big races, but more than enough stuff to talk about before then, because there really isn't at this point in time, because like you mentioned with Bob Baffert, nobody believes his horses are going to be participating in the Derby. Everything's wide open at this point in time. You can't just say, oh yeah, so-and-so, keep an eye on this, or keep an eye on Messier. Well, why would I keep an eye on Messier? He's, unless the owner switches over to another barn, he's not going to be able to participate, right?
Well, I'd like to know if he's going to guarantee victory, right? Didn't Mark Messier guarantee victory?
Yes.
That
would be a neat trick.
If the horse holds the press conference,
yes.
Prior to the race, I think we'll be. But I did come up with a top 10 list for you.
Okay.
For now, if you're ready for
Absolutely. Well, let me have it.
All right, so we're gonna go here now. I put 0 Bob Baffert horses on this list because, as the rule is written right now, he can't qualify. And I guarantee you, on this list of the 10, there's probably 6 of them that aren't on anybody else's list. All these other pundits out here that are speaking. So we'll see who's right on the first Saturday in May.
I like it.
All right. Well, you want to start from top to bottom or bottom to top?
Bottom to top.
All right. So number 10 is a horse that I promise you is not on anybody's list. Okay. Her name, that's right, I said her. Her name is Shamala. She's a filly in Dubai. Okay. She's undefeated.
Dubai. Wait. You're going to get a horse from Dubai and it's a girl.
Listen, so you talked about the road to the Kentucky Derby, right? It goes through Dubai. The UAE Derby is a 100-point race. If you win or run second, you get 50 points for second. Yes. You will qualify for the Kentucky Derby. She's undefeated. Her next start is the UAE Oaks coming up in 3 weeks, and then she'll run in the Derby on March 26th. She's owned by a guy from Bahrain and trained by a guy from Bahrain named Fawzi Nas, who is, electric. You talk about a fun interview. If she's running in the Derby, we may have to do an interview with Fawzi as she gets closer
Absolutely.
to the Derby. He's a good time, and she's a filly. She paid. Look, she cost $450,000. She wasn't cheap. Okay.
How do you spell her name?
She's Shamala. Shamama.
Okay.
All right, and she's going to be number 10 on the list. I'd like to move her up, but she's still a filly, and she is in Dubai. But she is number 10 on the list right now.
Yes.
Number 9, we're going to go back to the well to Cyberknife, the horse that Jonathan, I'm sure on your show has talked much about. Was very disappointing last time out in the hump, but I'm willing to think when the light bulb goes on that horse, he's going to be any kind. And in the care of Brad Cox, I think that light bulb will go on sooner rather than later. So I'm not taking him off the list yet.
Cyberknife. Number 8.
Number 8, Epicenter, the horse of Steve Asmussen that was second in the Lecomte Stakes. Now, I thought he ran a good race that day. The winner of that race, Call Me Midnight, I do not have on the list. I think he kind of tripped out that day. I don't think he's as good as Epicenter. However, I don't know that Epicenter, being by not this time, wants to go 1.25 miles. We're going to learn a lot about him. The Risen Star is actually next weekend on the 19th. And that's going to be a great race because you're going to have a lot of horses shipping in from out of town. Kenny McPeak is running his horse Smile Happy in there. Zendin's going to get his year started for Chad Brown. So it's going to be a really interesting race. So to me, he's either going to move up or move down on that list in 2 weeks' time. But for now, Epicenter is number 8.
And by the way, Epicenter right now is second in tied for first in points with Papa Cap with 14. Number 7.
So Papa Cap, by the way, does not make the list.
Okay.
However, his stablemate for Mark Casse, a horse that not a lot of people are paying attention to yet, Golden Glider, comes in at number 7. Now, Golden Glider is a horse who began his career in Canada. That's right. This is an international show here, Greg. He began his show in Canada, won his second start in Tampa in an allowance race. Could very well end up running this weekend in the Sam F. Davis, or we may just see he might wait for the Tampa Bay Derby. But he is squarely on the list, and that is Golden Glider at number 7.
Number 6.
Number 6, we're going to go to California. We'll go to Doug O'Neill and Slow Down Andy, California bred, who is supposedly shipping in, I think, maybe very possibly, to the fairgrounds for the Risen Star on the 19th. It's kind of the route that he took last year with Hot Rod Charlie. Hot Rod Charlie certainly become a very, very well-known horse. And he's going to take the same plan here with Slow Down Andy. So Slow Down Andy comes in at number 6.
And Slow Down Andy right now with 10 points. Right now tied for 5th in points. Okay, now we get to the top. Go ahead.
The last time we saw Slow Down Andy, he was easily defeating Messier.
Ooh.
And Messier came back and did what he did over the weekend.
Interesting.
So he's certainly one to keep an eye on. And Doug's horses tend to improve from 2 to 3. So looking forward to his 3-year-old debut coming up.
Top 5, starting with number 5.
Number 5, one of 2 horses on the top 5 here for trainer Todd Pletcher, a 2-time winner of the Kentucky Derby. He apparently can never lose a race in Gulfstream. I think he's about 40% at this point. But this one actually lost last time. This was from the Holy Bull, and he got defeated, and that is Mo Donegal. And Mo Donegal was the winner of the Remsen back in December 4th in New York. This was his first start of the year, and it very much looked like we talked about at the start of the show with my filly, Champagne Poetry, a stepping stone. I don't think he was 100% geared up for the race. He was finishing up well late. He galloped out very well. And as the distances go further, I think he'll be just fine. So 1.25 miles shouldn't bother him. I just worry. It's owned by the same people that used to own a horse named Keen Ice. And Keen Ice was one of those bridesmaids that always ran well and wasn't able to get it done. I just worry that Mo Donegal might end up in that category where I can see him hitting the board, but maybe not winning the Derby.
Okay, and Mo Donegal right now 5th on your list and tied for 3rd in points with 12. Let's go to number 4.
Number 4 is going to be Zendin, the horse that Mo Donegal beat, although maybe there was an inquiry. There was some elbows being thrown in the race and things like that. But Zendin was a tough luck second that day. I ran second to him in his debut performance with a horse named Matt Doyle. And if he's able to stay sound, that's going to be the big thing with him. He's a son of mastery. He's got some long pasterns on him. I do worry about that. But if he's able to stay sound, this is Chad Brown's probably best chance to ever win a Kentucky Derby. I know he had some chances last year and he's been in some derbies, but this horse certainly acts like he's the real kind. So He's going to be at number 4, and he's going to Fairgrounds, a move that Chad Brown hasn't done since Normandy Invasion back way, way, way back, and it didn't work out for Normandy Invasion. He had a horrible trip that day. So kind of surprised that Chad Brown's going this route, but Chad Brown's going to ship to Fairgrounds next week in what will be a really big showdown in the Risen Star.
All right, number 3.
Number 3, we're going to go to the winner of the Holy Bull. Maybe this is a little bit Monday morning quarterback, but White Abrasio for Safi Joseph is a horse that I've been a fan of for a long time. Things didn't go the way they were supposed to when he ran at Churchill in his last start as a 2-year-old. Private purchase after his debut for a lot of money. He's by a little-known stallion called Race Day that was once trained by Todd Pletcher, but he did everything right on Saturday. And he's going the right way, and I really liked what I saw from him on Saturday. I know others maybe had some trouble trips, and maybe he worked out the best scenario, but he did it the right way, and I'm not going to fault him for winning. In the name of this game, the concept is to win.
And by the way, it's very rare to have a Kentucky Derby winning horse that has a white complexion.
Yes.
So that would be interesting. Okay, number 2.
Number 2, a horse that we haven't seen yet as a 3-year-old. It's one of 5 horses on the Derby Trail for trainer Kenny McPeak, and that is Rattle and Roll. Rattle and Roll going to make an appearance here for Kenny McPeak. He's a son of Connect. He I was told, purposely kind of skipped the Breeders' Cup to try and point for a Derby-like campaign that worked well in the past for horses like Tiz the Law. I think he can really run. I had a conversation last week with jockey Robbie Alvarado, who's now retired, but has been breezing and galloping horses for Kenny McPeak. Of course, he won the Preakness a few years ago on Kenny McPeak's filly Swiss Skydiver. He's sat on all of them, and he's told me that Rattle and Roll is his pick of the back, and I trust his opinion. So we're going to go with Rattle and Roll at number 2 right now.
Okay, right now 10 points, tied for 5th. And finally, your number 1, as of today, Monday, February 7th, the first list, your number 1 contender for the Kentucky Derby.
The number 1 contender, you see that point list you have in front of you?
Yes, I do.
You see all the ones that have points?
Yes.
Number 1 on the list has 0 points. It's Emmanuel for the barn of Todd Pletcher. He won an allowance race the other day at Tampa last Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago, on the 27th, the day after the Pegasus. This is a horse who they're very high on. They're taking the always dreaming route. Todd Pletcher worked this to success last time when he won his last Derby. It's an interesting strategy because you're not going for a lot of points, right? So he's not going to run again until the Tampa Bay Derby or the Florida Derby, and that'll be his swing for the fences. So right now he's Babe Ruth. He's come to bat. He's pointing to the fences. He's 2 for 2. He's done them both very, very impressively. But as of right now, 0 Derby points. He's tied with all the Bob Baffert horses with 0 Kentucky Derby points, and I think he is the number 1 horse on the list right now, despite not having any points.
Okay, well, now that I've got your list, because let's see, again, next week, are any of these horses racing next week?
So we might see a couple we're waiting on Golden Glider, I think. I think he'll probably run in the Sam F. Davis.
Okay.
Classic Causeway. There's 3 or 4 horses running in there that are going to be really interesting horses, and how they run in there could affect the kind of moving up and down of the list. Even though maybe a lot of them aren't in action right now, the fact is we could see something out of there. Seeing a lot of 3-year-old debuts in that race to find out what happens.
Okay, so well, we've got it right here, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to put together a nice little report that we can and actually show the rankings, and we can follow them each week. Well, actually, is this something that you would update each week?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Right.
Unless, of course, all the horses don't race.
Everybody loves the ESPN Power rankings, right?
Absolutely.
Who's up, who's down, whatever.
Yes.
So absolutely.
And maybe by next year we'll have it sponsored.
I guess it depends how it does, right?
Yeah, that's true. We'll be keeping our fingers crossed. No question about that. A couple more things before I let you go. And by the way, I just want to remind everybody a couple other things. First of all, these shows, unlike John's weekly picks, this show is available for free on our YouTube channel. And you would know that because you're watching it. You don't have to pay for it. But what we're going to be doing is taking your questions. It's very easy. You've got the opportunity on our page there to just ask anything. It could be questions. You can comment, obviously. But if you have any questions at all for Chad, just use our channel page right there in the section to ask Chad anything you like, and we'll use those questions on our next show. I wanted to ask you, do you have any idea why the Breeders' Cup hasn't come up with a challenge series schedule yet?
No, it should be out there. I know they're working on some sponsorship stuff and stuff like that. It's going to be in Keeneland this year, in the frozen tundra of Keeneland in Kentucky, in the first week in November, I think. But no, the schedule.
They're not behind then. Okay.
Should be out. If not, I'm sure it'll just be it'll be imminent because obviously those are the races that people will start pointing to as we look to the road to the Breeders' Cup.
And I was talking to John about this we did one of the Santa Anita races on the show on Friday. It was a 6-horse field. There were 3 stakes races at Santa Anita: 6-horse field, 5-horse field, 5-horse field. I mean, that's not good. I mean, it's you got to give a little bit more variety to the fans, don't you? I mean, that's just not good. Why is that? Why are they having a hard time, with limited number of horses in these big races?
Well, I think there's a few items at place right now. The major plane company that we use to ship to fly these horses around the country is a company called Tech Sutton, and right now they're not in business. They had some insurance problems, and they've been working to get things done. And I mean, it was a struggle to get some of the horses from California to Gulfstream for the Pegasus, and that was big day with big purses and big money. It's been a challenge. So A lot of times people don't want to ship their horses by van. It's a lot of distance. From California to Florida you're not going to do it in 6 hours and then be well rested for your race.
Yeah.
So that plays a part in it. In California, especially, you're not going to attract a lot of horses from Oregon or Wyoming or
no.
Las Vegas or something like that. So, unfortunately, their horse populations, and they've lost some horses along the way. Oaklawn Park is giving away so much money that they've had some of their larger trainers, Richard Baltus, Peter Miller, and his team over there, his new assistant that's training in Oaklawn, and Phil D'Amato, and even Baffert will ship over there. So you lose a lot of horses to where the money is. It's tough, and there's a disconnect right now, unfortunately, in a lot of these racetracks between the front side and the back side. And by that, I mean the front side is management, right? The trainers and the owners and the grooms and the hot walkers and the riders, they're the backside. They're kind of the core. They're the 7 days a week, here at the barn at 4:30 every day people. And management, I don't want to say they're going through the motions, but they don't use a lot of creativity in their writing of the races. The races aren't going. It's a struggle to get horses entered to run, to break your maiden, to win your first race. And if you don't win your first race, you can't win your second race, and so on and so forth. And that becomes a big challenge. And, the other thing too is a lot of times people, like I said, you're not getting paid if you don't win. If you're not in the top 3 or 4 or 5 in New York, and even then you're barely, kind of scraping by.
Yeah.
People want to win. Mm-hmm. And, to run in a stake race like in California against Bob Baffert at, 1-5 as a heavy favorite, you don't want to do it. You don't want to, I'd rather wait and run in an easier spot, even though it's less money and less prestige, because it's easier.
Sure.
Well, and that's kind of been the concept. It's almost like, what do they always say in college football and college basketball, where you're out of conference schedule? You're scheduling the school from D2 and the cupcakes and all those kind of things, and that's what people do, and that's why the road to the Breeders' Cup and these points races for the Derby, when they're higher, when these are 50-point races, 100-point races, you're not going to see 5-horse fields. I promise you that. So that concept, I think, is good. it needs to be instituted along the way in some of these other races. I think it'll hopefully come, and it starts with, you know, the central branch of governing. We don't have a commissioner that every other sport has, and it's hurt boxing, and I really feel like it's hurt us along the way, because the tracks don't work together, the tracks don't work with each other, and it's just it becomes a nightmare situation when you're running the same races for the same kind of horses on top of each other, rather than put together a series, or, you know, okay, hey, you know, there's a big race here in Maryland, and then 3 weeks a month there's going to be a big one in New York. Instead, we'll have 2 little ones, one in New York, one in Maryland, and they're both 5-horse fields.
Yeah, well, that's not going to change anytime soon, but I mean, is there a solution, really?
Yeah, make me the commissioner of racing. We'll get
okay.
it. We'll get it turned around.
Yeah, right. This is the beginning of your platform.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, sounds good, Chad. Good to have you on again. We'll speak with you every Monday, late in the afternoon, which means that these shows should be available early evening every Monday. And look forward to talking to you again next week and getting your new list.
Sounds good. Have a good one, Greg.
Thanks. And don't forget, everybody, check out John Hardoon and his picks, along with yours truly, as I'm not sure which races we're handicapping this week. We never know. Hopefully, it'll be some of these big races that we just talked about, because we do have those 2 races for the Kentucky Derby this week. The Sam F. Davis and El Camino Real Derby.
A very important question for you, Greg.
Yes.
Did he give out his picks in the Ruthless Stakes last Sunday?
The Ruthless Stakes?
The race that we were in.
Oh, no. That was on a Sunday anyway, so, you know. He actually he was actually trying to avoid even, like, talking about it. I was like, wait a second. Because he was telling me that the only reason he was heading East Coast early was because of the race.
Right.
I had to get it out of him. It's like, come on. We want to watch the race. We want to know what goes on.
He was very nervous. He was very nervous.
Yeah.
It was good to see. You know, it's funny, because you have a guy like Jonathan, who him and his family have been involved in racing forever, right? And now here he is with a young horse, and still to have the butterflies. I mean, he looked like he was, you know, batting leadoff in the World Series.
Imagine.
He was so it was fun to see, and, you know, hopefully she can reward him next time, and just, you know, stick her tongue out or do something. We just got to win the photo.
That would be awesome. Yeah, right. That'd be awesome. Okay, Chad, we'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks, Greg.